Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the family for coming to help us celebrate the life of Donald Page Lemon. He was known by me as Donny. He was known by many others as Cam, and he was known by others even more as Donny Two Moms. He was born on March 16th, 1981, and he passed away on October 18th, 2020. He was preceded in death by his father Andrew and his uncle Jake, who are surely there to meet him and his motorcycle for the next ride of his life. He leaves behind two daughters, Alexis and Izzy, a son Trevor, a granddaughter Lyra, and a grandchild that is on the way. He is survived by his mother Linda, his sister Abby, his brother Adam, his girlfriend Elisa, and her son Vander, whom Donny really liked to take fishing. His mother Linda said that at the first 5 days of his life, he was sleepy. He got one good feeding every 24 hours. Then he woke up and never slowed down again. He learned to ride a bike at 4 years old before his older brothers. He enjoyed the outdoors and enjoyed helping a farmer friend with chores, especially if it involved driving the tractor, which he was doing at the age of 6. He was very curious about things, always taking things apart and putting them back together. Sometimes there were extra parts there, but Donny never met a car he couldn't fix, an electronic device he couldn't take apart and put back together. One of my favorite stories his mother Linda shared with me was that he once wired the Christmas tree to the television and got better reception. They didn't have cable at the time. Donny, for sure, had that ick factor, that unique charisma that drew people to him like a magnet, and a sense of humor that could put even the most boring person into stitches of laughter. From the farmlands of central Illinois to the deserts of Arizona to the Pacific Northwest, he made friends from all walks of life who recognized the goodness in him. Donny worked hard and he played hard. He loved to ride his motorcycle, take his truck out mudding, camping, fishing, and traveling in his camper. He moved to Cottonwood, Arizona, where he drove for a Jeep touring company. That was where he really got interested in four-wheeling. He learned about Arizona plants and the mountains. He was a fabulous tour guide. He really loved that job. Unfortunately, Jeep tour companies don't utilize their drivers full-time, so he was unable to make a living doing that, but he would take his friends four-wheeling in his own personal vehicle. Donny loved helping people. He was always helping this or that buddy, and he had so many buddies. One time there was a flood in Sedona, Oak Creek area. He took the Jeep and rescued people who were stranded, and that was so Donny. As I've said, Donny worked hard and he played hard. He worked as a server for many years. When he first came to Arizona, he worked with Linda at Denny's, where he met me and a host of other people with whom he continued to be friends. The last 8 or 9 years, he worked at the Mellow Mushroom. He dearly loved his Mellow Mushroom family. I met Donny at Denny's. When he found out I was a mechanic, he immediately started asking questions. He always had a vehicle of some kind that he was working on. That's how we knew each other. We were both mechanics. What I immediately recognized was that Donny was not only a good mechanic, but he had a gift of mechanics. He was inherently talented at it. There are a lot of people who repair vehicles, but very few are naturally talented and truly have the gift of understanding how things work and how to repair them. And Donny was most certainly one of those rare mechanics. I'd like to tell a story about Donny and I. I recently moved to Virginia And as a mechanic, I naturally had hundreds of tools, heavy toolboxes, and a large one-ton box truck that had been my work truck. It was now my shop and my storage facility. It didn't run and hadn't in over 20 years. I told Linda how I was struggling with my move, and she suggested I call Donny. Well, I did, and with no hesitation at all, he said that he would help. I had to get rid of the truck somehow, and I had no idea how that was going to happen. So when Donny came over and he saw my truck, his eyes lit up. It was an 84 Hunter, but he loved that truck. He helped me move. I couldn't have done it without him. He never asked for a dime. He was just there helping a friend who needed him. We hooked up the truck and he pulled it home. Remember, this truck hadn't run and been operable for 20 years. 2 days later, I got a text from Donny. He said, "Guess what? It's running." And he recorded a video and sent it to me to prove it. That was so good. After all, I wasn't surprised because, it was Donny. I've never met a person who had a larger heart for helping people than Donny. He was always eager to help anyone who needed it. He was a blessing to me and a true friend. Donny lived life to the fullest. He took on challenges that most people wouldn't even dream of attempting. He enjoyed life and left us too soon. But he left us an example of what it means to savor every minute of life and to be a true friend. I will miss him, as will everyone who have ever known him.
All right, so for those of you who can't tell, I'm Donny's sister. My name's Abby. I just want to thank you all for coming to our house today for this event. Thank you for following everything. I know it's a bummer with COVID. If we didn't have COVID, we'd be having a rave here right now. But we got to do what we got to do. So I wanted to share with everyone 7 life lessons that I've learned from being Donny's sister. Lesson one is that less equals more. For those of you that know Donny, he did not need a lot of material possessions. He just needed his camper, his bike, his truck. That's all he needed. A funny story is when we were living in Illinois about 20 years ago, he was living in a tent in Creve Court. And someone stole his tent. And he was so upset about it, but then he just got on with it and got another tent and just moved on with his life. Lesson 2 that I've learned from my brother's life is to work hard and play hard. Donny had a wonderful work ethic. Those of you that worked with him probably know that. But he also played hard. And when we were little kids, there was a hill in our hometown called Hospital Hill that my mom specifically told us we were not allowed to ride our bikes down. And I was 7 and Donny was 8. And he's like, "Come on, we can go down Hospital Hill. It'll be cool. Mom won't know. It'll be fine." So we go down the hill at his insistence, and I crashed my bike. And then we got busted by my mom for going down Hospital Hill. But that's how Donny rolls. He didn't care. The third lesson I've learned from my brother's life is to be a helper. Donny made a positive impact in his community. So by a show of hands, how many of you had a car that Donny worked on? Okay. Now keep them up. How many of you did he give car advice to? Exactly, right? So every time you turn on your car, I'm sure that you guys will think about Donny. Also, a funny story last year at Thanksgiving, he was over here for Thanksgiving, Elisa was here, and we were just pulling the turkey and all the stuff out of the oven, and our oven door just fell off. And we're all baffled. We're like, "Oh my God, our oven just broke, what do we do?" And Donny looks, he's like, "Oh, I got a tool for that." And he goes out to his car and he fixed it, and it's been working since. We never had to get it fixed after that. The fourth lesson is to have fun in life. So, when I was 14, my moms were out one night, and he came in my room. He's like, "Hey, Mom and Joanne are gone. Do you want to smoke weed for the first time?" I was like, "Yeah, man." So I go out, and he has this little joint rolled, and I smoke it, and he's like, "Ha ha, you idiot, that was oregano." He like totally busted me, so it was so funny. But then he's got me so mad. The fifth life lesson I learned from my brother is optimism and positivity. So for those of you that know our backstory, when we grew up in Elmwood, people there weren't very nice to us because of our moms. And Donny just didn't let it get to him. I mean, it did get to him, but he just went on living his life, right? You can't control how other people are going to be shitty to you, and he just did what he wanted to do. Lesson 6 is get in touch with nature. How many of you have done something outdoors with my brother? Yeah, exactly. Love being outside. Seventh lesson I've learned from my brother is to get dirty. So, one day we hadn't seen Donny in about 6 months. We hadn't heard from him. Donny was out being Donny. And he calls me out of the blue and he says, "Hey dude, you home?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Can I come use your shower?" I'm like, all right. So he came over looking straight up homeless, used my shower, smoked some weed, and took off. And that was classic Donny's humor right there. So if you have a drink, go ahead, raise it to my brother. And thank you all for coming. Elisa, do you want to go next?
Good job, Danny.
Back and forth here a little bit because my mind was working faster than my hand. Okay, so we'll start out. I met Cam at NASCAR almost 9 years ago now. I don't remember meeting him because we were at the canteen then. So the next morning we're at the camp, all hungover, and I smelled weed, and I was like, "Oh my God, those guys are smoking a joint, like that would help so much." So I go over to ask him, like, "Can I please hit that? I'm so hungover." And he's like, "Yeah, of course. And by the way, I have your mom's ID." And I was like, "Whoa, like, who the hell are you?" "Yeah, she left it at the bar last night." I'm like, okay, well, I don't remember that, but we got to talking and found out we lived like 3 streets down from each other. So we kind of just became best friends ever since then. And like I said, that was 9 years ago. We just started dating about 3 years ago. First time he kissed me, I yelled at him, and I was like, "Don't let that ever happen again. I don't want to ruin our friendship." But it did, and it continued to, so no complaints. I'm kind of just going off the top of my head here. He taught me so much about life and love and adventure. Like Abby was saying, I mean, almost at least, if not every single weekend, like every other weekend, we were out. We would just get on the bike and just drive. I'm like, "Where are we going?" He's like, "I don't know." He taught my son so much about the outdoors, fishing, camping. I'm gonna miss that a lot, so I guess I really got to step up my game there. Before we were dating, we were just friends still. We went through about a 3-month period of time that we literally just sent each other memes, like really messed up memes. Like we didn't even speak any words, just memes back and forth. And we still, I mean, his jokes were the best. And he probably won't admit it, but I brought my own good ones to the table too. His laugh is one of a kind. I will never forget that laugh. His eyes, so gorgeous, and they almost told a story. I could always tell when he was like really happy or like truly in a deep moment. His eyes would turn just this color the way he like looked at me, and I could feel it, like felt love in my heart. You know, he didn't have a filter. That's for sure. I'm sure you guys all know that. And that was one of my favorite things about him. He didn't care if you didn't like what he had to say. which ultimately was usually respectful. At least he could justify it that way. He really had no enemies. Anybody that's ever slightly been in his presence has been touched by his kindness, selflessness. He'd pull over, like we'd be going somewhere in a hurry, you know, being running late, and he'd pull over on the side of the road if somebody was broke down, just to help them fix their car, get them going without asking anything in return. And he would give you the shirt off his back if he had to. He was a saint. He would tell it to you straight, no bullshit. And even if it's not what you wanted to hear in the moment, at some point you realize that he was right. I'm going to miss running my fingers through his beard. I will not miss cleaning up all of his little beard things around the sink in the bathroom, though. I have to ask him all the time. He's like, oh yeah, I'll do it next time. No, he never did. His smile was like infectious, you know. Of course, you guys all know that. One of my favorite things, this was also before we were dating, I can't remember what year it was. We went to the Neon Splash Dash together, but we got there pretty early. And so we were kind of just sitting around waiting for it to start, and we're like, let's get a beer. By the time it started, it wasn't really a dash. It was more just like we were walking. I mean, it was really crowded, so it would be hard to run anyways, but we had so much fun. I still have the outfit that I wore with all the paint and everything all over it. Actually, I was just going through some stuff the other day, and I was like, Cam, what? And I showed him the shorts. He's like, oh my God, you still have this. So, I don't know what else to say, really. So many good times, and I wish I could have more, but I'm going to cherish all the ones that I have.
I'm Donny's mom. Haven't spoken before a crowd for a while, but I'm sure glad you guys are all here. The only one here that was there actually when he was born. He sent some mixed messages. He was about 6 days late. When he finally decided to get here, it was real quick. And then he went back to the sleeping for the 5 days, and after that, I've never gotten him to slow down. Couldn't get him to go to sleep. Couldn't get him to wake up. He was independent from day one. He was my third child in 3 years, and pretty much did a lot of his own things. I remember a particular incident when he had just learned how to walk, and it was probably maybe a year and a half tops. And he was going up the stairs to his room, and he wasn't going fast enough for me. And he was kind of doing a crawl up there, so I went ahead and I grabbed him by the waist and started picking him up. And he turned around at me, looked at me right in the face, and he said, "Self, Mommy, self." And he's just, that was him. He was constantly like that. Before he could walk, he still loved anything with wheels. Back at that time, they had walkers with wheels on that. I don't think they have them anymore. They're deemed unsafe. I understand why. Donny crashed them into the walls constantly. Couldn't keep up with him. But he's just been an amazing person. He was a sweet little boy. I'm finding out that he did do a few things like teaching my daughter how to smoke pot. I did find out through one of the Facebook posts that a friend of his, when he was in high school, evidently they used to cut school and go bike riding, and this is the first time finding out about him. So it's a good thing I can't reach out and give him a good backhand. But he was his own person. He brought so much joy to me. There were a couple of times where I was ready to kick him to the ground, but for the most part, he was always very sweet. When he was 4, He informed me that he was never going to leave me. When he grew up, he was never going to leave me because he didn't want me to be lonely. And he's with me constantly now. The outpouring support that we have had has shown me, I had no idea how much of an impact he's had on the world. And I told his children who are around here somewhere, if they have 1/10 of that, they will be amazing people. He touched the world in a way that nobody else did. And I thank you all for recognizing it and being a part of our sharing of his life. And I hope to get to know a lot of you better. So thank you very much.
I hope I can get through this. My name's Donna. I'm Elisa's mom. Thank you, Abby and Linda and Elisa, for making this happen so we could all celebrate Cameron's life. Okay. I met Cam in, I think it was 2013 at the NASCAR race. After hanging out with him for just one night, I thought, this is a guy I need to introduce to my daughter, you know. And like Elisa said, I lost my ID, typical me, you know. Cameron, being the person he was, he found our campsite and he brought it back. And as fate would have it, he met Elisa. I thought, you know, he's really unique. He's definitely funny. Made you laugh all the time. So I was sitting in between them on the steps of the camper, and Cameron's on one side of the chair, Lisa's on the other side of the chair. And it was like I couldn't get a word in. They were the only two people at NASCAR. You know, they hit it off right away. And they became really close friends. After that day, it might have been at my house, it might have been on my couch. Abby, that's an inappropriate bit. But Elisa said to me, Mom, I think we might be more than just friends. And like we all think for our kids, I asked myself, not him, but I said, you know, what are your intentions, son? Actually, I did ask Cameron that, and he kind of laughed, but he never really answered me. But let me tell you what, he showed me all the time. He loved Elisa unconditionally, and he stuck by her no matter what. And that meant so much to me. He would take Van, as Van would say, to the middle of nowhere. It's always the middle of nowhere, no matter where it was. And he put a sheet up and put his phone to a projector and watched Lewis and the Aliens out in the middle of nowhere with Van. That's who Cam was. He would make sure that Van had the best lightning between fishing pole because he wanted to teach him how to fish. And catch the biggest fish, which of course, no matter what Van did, he caught the biggest fish in the lake. Cam would make sure he caught the biggest fish, even if it was this big. He would pull off the intended path to go to Arizona because he knew Van would think it was cool. That's who Cam was. I never questioned his intentions again because he showed me all the time. And as Cam would say to Van every time he would leave for work, come here, dude, give me knuckles. Give me knuckles. Van said when we told him what happened, he said to me a little while later, Grandma, Cam will come back in my dream. If we all could be so lucky. Thank you, Cameron, for being in our lives. We love you always. We miss you so much. And I just want to say, knuckles, dude. Knuckles, dude.
There's all this talk about pot. I believe Cameron told me that story about the oregano, by the way. Abby.
Such an ass.
Yes. There are many of stories that we could share about Cameron, far too many to share about Cameron. But I met Cameron, my name is Craig Miller. I met Cameron about 5 years ago as a patron at the Mellow Mushroom. Being originally from Boston, I knew very few people in Arizona. And from the moment I met Cam, I instantly knew, now here's a man with one hell of a unique sense of humor. A sense of humor that most of us here cannot get away with. A man with hard work ethic and a patient man of true sincerity. Within that short amount of time, Cam became the best friend I had here in the state of Arizona. We shared many interests, from history and science to off-roading the Arizona outback. In fact, if Cam were here today, we would be, at this very moment, razor riding the pines of Flagstaff, as we had a cabin rented for 3 nights this weekend. Now, all of us here today remember Cameron for his selflessness and his big heart. What is it that gave him these admirable qualities that far too many of us do not possess? I can tell you this from my personal experience with Cameron. Cameron did not judge people. He had an impeccable quality of being able to see the good in people. In essence, Cameron did not hate. To Cam, it mattered not if you were white or black, Jew or Gentile, gay or straight, Asian or Hispanic. Cam judged a person by the content of their character, thus in return making him the so-loved person he is and will always be. So today, let us not merely mourn the loss of Cameron, but let us also learn from him. If there's anything that we can take away from this tragic loss, let it be to emulate his unbiased love for his fellow human being, making this a better world for all of us, just as Cam would have wanted it. Cam, wherever you are, wherever you may be right now, know this. We are all here together in memory of you. You will be dearly missed, Cam, but you will never, ever be forgotten. Never be forgotten. Your friend.
Hey, I'm Jesse. I met Cam and his mom the exact same day, almost 13 years ago. Do you remember?
Academy of Denny's.
And it was at Denny's. And after everybody moved on in different paths, Cam and I had to keep in touch for a lot of the same reasons that all of you mentioned, but one specific one. Because you pair the two of us together and it doesn't look like we'd be friends, right? I mean, I'm super metro and he's definitely not. I have a lot of education and he never wanted one. But I think definitely the one thing that tied us together, all of you mentioned, is humor. But specifically, he had a twisted and sick sense of humor. And I was the only one that could match that. And so that held us together for years until just a few years ago, he started fixing my car. We started talking more, and it was when I was going through a divorce. And then I got engaged, and then surprisingly she left me, and then she died. And so he was there through all of that. And that's when I started actually doing comedy. We were supposed to do it together. I don't know if any of you knew that, but that was actually the plan. That he was actually going to pursue it as an actual goal rather than just smarting off all of us. And so I started, and he came and supported me, but he never got on the stage. It's crazy. But what got funnier is as we kept hanging out more and more through that period, especially these last few years, I've seen more of them than ever. And I think it's gotten really apparent because he finishes my sentences, but only when it's disgusting. And he also has reminded me of a lot of things. I've gotten into dad mode a little too much. So one time he was working on my car, he comes in, he goes, "Oh my God, it slipped. I think it went down to the bone. You want to see?" I said, "Oh my God, no." And he looks at me. I was like, "Do I have a vagina now? Of course, let me see that." Don't forget yourself. But he also made sure that I took everything in stride, you know? So it was so weird that we were always on the exact same page. And, know, I'd literally tell him something, I'd be like, or he'd see it on Facebook or whatever. And I'll give you an example. I I posted this one publicly. No one got it. I said, yeah, I met this girl at a bar and I snuck her into the bathroom and I told her, you're an 8. And everybody goes, oh, was she mad because she wasn't a 10? And Cam goes, you're all freaking idiots. He said, you're an 8, you morons. And there are some worse ones than that. I'll tell it. I don't want to disturb anyone, so I won't tell everyone together. But it was just hilarious because no matter how unique I thought I was, and no matter how much nobody else would get anything, I'd have to stare at people for like a full minute before they got it half the time. He'd like start laughing before I even finished the sentence, because he always did. So it was so weird, as different as the two of us were. It was so bizarre that when you put the two of us together, we're finishing each other's sentences and stuff. You don't see that very often with people that are so different. But for us, it was just normal. And I mean, the couple of you who actually knew me, you know, you would agree. It was just normal, everyday shit with us. So I don't know. It's gonna be weird. He's probably gonna expect me to, like, in the next few months, make some jokes at his expense around people that won't be offended by it. But in memory, he'd probably expect that. So I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
At 3, there might be a motorcycle drive-by.
What time is it?
Maybe a motorcycle drive-by.
What time is it right now?
It's almost 3. They said they'd be around 3 soon. If you get interrupted.
Well, I'm going to make it short and sweet. My name's Mark. I'm Elisa's my boyfriend. Known Cameron for about 3 years. He was an awesome guy. I know he touched my heart as well as he did everybody here, or else we wouldn't be here. He was one of the kind of guys that pull up the stoplight and the best friend for life. You know, that's just how he was. That's who he was. And I thank God every day that he was in my life. He was just astounding, funny. If I'm bummed out, feeling down, picked me right back up every time. We had our little faults with each other. I thought he was a little arrogant sometimes, but that's his Cameron, you know. He spoke his mind. He had no filter. Loved his fucking jokes. We go out four-wheeling one day. He goes, you gotta hear this fucking song, man. It's fucking great. As a matter of fact, Elisa found it. It's called Rebel Son, the band. It's a white piece of American trash, some shit like that. It's so crazy. Look at this Cam. He pulls up with shit like that all the time. It was great. Gonna miss him. And I want to thank everybody at Mellow Mushroom. Daniela, I don't know if you're here, but she's the one that pulled together the fundraiser and everything for him. And you guys are awesome, man. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. He will be missed and loved every day.
Anyone else would like to come up and say a couple of words? The floor is yours. Would anyone like to start? If not, then Bill, or someone, Pastor, you want to come up and say anything? Do you want to? This is fun.
Hi, my name's Isabel. I don't have much to say except I'm really glad that everybody's here and able to share some amazing memories of Donny. I knew him as my uncle, but I'm sure most of you knew him as so many different people. And I'm so grateful that we're all able to be here and celebrate his life. And he would have loved to see, I feel like, everyone that he loved in the same room. But just thank you for coming and have a great rest of your day.
Anything else?
I'd like to perhaps close this off with a poem by Alan S. Mahler that I think really kind of exemplifies Donny and who he was and how he lived his life. It says, when I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your goodness and multiplying your acts of kindness. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not on your mind. And remember, love does not die, people do. So when all that's left is love, give me away. That was Donny. Thank you all for coming. We love you. You love Donny. Good company.